Welcome to Credentialing Chronicles, where we spill the doctor tea hotter than your morning coffee.
And give you the insider scoop in the wild world of credentialing, provider drama, and everything they don't teach you in med school.
I'm Shannen, and she's Nyleen, two credentialing pros with front row seats to all the chaos.
From fraud scandals to burnout breakdowns and why your favorite surgeon might actually be banned from 5 hospitals.
We got the gossip and the practical advice to keep you out of trouble and ahead of the game.
So grab your coffee, your compliance checklist, and maybe a lawyer, and let's get into it. Okay, Shannen, so grab your popcorn. This is one for the books. You won't believe what I just heard. It's all about a nurse practitioner and a podiatrist from New York. And trust me, this is a mess. They were basically running their own little drug rings under the guise of medical care. But first, let's do our disclaimer, why don't you?
As a disclaimer, the cases we will be sharing with you are all available through public court documents. We promise we are not sharing any privileged or private information, and we have never personally credentialed these practitioners. We will not release the names of the practitioners, but we will give you all those other juicy details.
This episode of Credentialing Chronicles is sponsored by Advanced Quality Compliance, your white glove credentialing crew. We get it. One person doing the work of 5, audit season looming, files all over the place. AQC steps in with expert hands and calm minds, digitizing your chaos, handling the details, and keeping you audit ready 24/7. Think less stress, more success with a touch of luxury. No stress, no mess. Just AQC white glove service. Visit aqccbo.com to get started.
Okay. Wait, are you talking about that case? The one with the nurse practitioner who was handing out oxycodone prescriptions like it was candy? I've been hearing all about that, Nyleen. This is gossip gold. But first, I'd like to hear what happened from you.
Well, honey, you are not ready for this. So this nurse practitioner from Long Island was literally just selling prescriptions to anyone with cash. We're talking like $200 to $400 per visit. No medical exam, like no questions asked.
I wonder, were they using? How did this happen?
Oof, there's a thought, terrifying one anyway. So, get this. They ended up handing out over 422,000 oxycodone pills to drug dealers and addicts. Like, it was an entire business going on.
Hold on, he didn't even examine them? He just handed them over for cash? That's like running a drugstore without even pretending to care about being a doctor or a pharmacist, right? Did they catch him because of a tip-off, or did someone finally put 2 and 2 together and actually look and see there was a problem?
Girl, it took a whole investigation. You know, these things don't happen overnight. Apparently, 1/3 of the people he was prescribing to had criminal records for drug offenses. So, you know, they're going to cover each other up. Ain't nobody looking to disclose anybody. He was basically just running the pill mill out of the office. And when they caught him, well, I guess then he agreed to forfeit only, $150,000 in drug money. Just unbelievable.
Unbelievable is yes. Is that even the best word? Okay, but wait, what about the podiatrist? Wasn't there another one mixed up in this whole kind of thing? What happened?
Ugh, don't even get me started. So then enter the podiatrist from Brooklyn, who was also selling oxycodone prescriptions. He didn't even pretend to help people. He just wrote prescriptions for people who weren't even his patients. Cash up front, of course. So he sold over 450 prescriptions, and each prescription went for about $300. He's out here acting like a dealer.
3 $100 for a prescription. Wait, so he's just handing out to pills to anybody that can pay this $300? No examination, no nothing? Hey, you got your money, here's your prescription type of thing? Is that what you're saying? That's insane.
I know, and the thing is, that's not even a guarantee that the pharmacies will fill it, right? That's just for the prescriptions. So these drug addicts are seriously going through some serious...
Some hoops.
Yeah, for real. So anyway, think about it though. A podiatrist does procedures, they do surgeries, so they would have prescriptive authority and a DEA.
True.
So
True.
misusing that.
And that's right. So DEA, let's talk about that for a minute, right? What is that again, so that our listener knows exactly what it is? And if you can also sprinkle a little information about that state controlled substance, because, some states have that as a requirement.
Right. So DEA stands for the Drug Enforcement Administration, which everybody knows, right?
Okay.
They're the ones who do a little bit of everything. Well, they also take part in the doctor's prescriptive authority, and it really refers to that federal agency that's responsible for regulating and enforcing the controlled substances laws and regulations in the United States. The DEA ensures that really prescription drugs, particularly, of course, controlled substances, are prescribed and dispensed in a manner that is legal, ethical, and safe.
And this is something that the people we're talking about today were not doing, correct?
No. They're having all kinds of fun.
Just here you go.
Yes. So doctors, like other healthcare professionals, in this case, podiatrists, nurse practitioners, in order to get that prescriptive authority, they have to register with the DEA and obtain a number with an application, right? And they have to pay a fee. They have to go through the checks. They'll be issued a number. The DEA is valid for 3 years. They get a registration number. And then on that DEA license, right, or prescriptive authority certificate, there's a schedule of drugs on there. Right, so it's 2 to A, right? So there's different schedules of classifications of drugs. It's schedules 1 through 5, and they're based on their potential for abuse, medical use, and safety.
I remember hearing about that, right? So remember the marijuana, they said it was going to be rescheduled on the DEA. Remember that? They were talking about that.
Right, and things like even cough medicine, right? They've moved up and down the schedule, according to them, the schedule, depending on this potential, right, of abuse, medical use. And
how safe it is.
Correct. Doctors are authorized to prescribe these drugs only within the schedules that are allowed for their medical practice. So a primary care doctor, right, is not doing surgery, right? Maybe a surgeon needs a little more of the schedules, right? The
oxycodone. Okay.
Exactly. So those are going to be monitored differently, and different doctors could have different schedules on them.
So then different from like a heart blood pressure pill.
Very different.
Because the doctors, the family people might prescribe that, right?
Correct. And they're all going to be different types of scheduled drugs. So every drug does have schedules. Just like your Schedule 1 is going to be heroin.
Okay, y'all. Schedule 1 heroin, but they're not prescribing that, right?
No, I'd hope not. No.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd have to do our check to see which one methadone is. But anyway. Okay, so once they get the DEA, then they have to follow the rules of the DEA.
They do have to follow it, yes.
And some of the rules are appropriate record keeping, following the prescription limits. They have to be monitoring the patients, and they have to maintain accurate records of all the prescriptions for controlled substances that they've given, and ensure that these are filled in accordance with federal and state laws. Again, we go with everything is state specific. And
so are those being audited? Do we know that? How do we know that those are?
Yeah, they got caught for the misuse of the prescriptions. So the pharmacies are keeping track of all of this.
Okay.
For example, here in Georgia, right, we got to do a PDMP check, and we got to register as a DEA prescriber. We got to register with the state, and the state will actually monitor and provide us a report before we see every patient. So while we're seeing a patient, we'll run a check to make sure before we prescribe any narcotics, especially if they're going to go and have surgery. You got to be really careful on what you can and cannot prescribe.
Okay. So they're really monitoring that now. Okay, good.
Remember, each state is different. Florida is very different than Georgia. And so
True.
state medical boards have their own guidelines and prescribing practices. So each state may decide that they're going to subject their doctors to more audits and investigations, right? And there are penalties. So there's penalties for non-compliance. So failure to adhere to the DEA regulations or improper prescription of controlled substances can lead to penalties, such as suspension or revocation of their DEA registration, legal action, and criminal charges. So yeah, pretty interesting.
Okay. That is pretty interesting. And so really, you have to be registered to go ahead and get the DEA to prescribe. And then there's people that are oversight checking this all out. And so if there is a bad actor out there, like the podiatrist or the nurse practitioner, that are actually just handing the prescriptions outside of the drive-through window, right, of oxycodone, is that what it is at that point?
Yes.
There's somebody that's flagging it, right? Hey, this is a lot of oxycodone from a podiatrist, right?
And then you talked about the CDS. So some states also have a CDS. So just really quickly, a CDS, prescriptive authority, really just refers to the ability of a healthcare provider to prescribe. They're called controlled dangerous substances, which is CDS. And these are medications with a high potential, again, for abuse and dependence. So you can get a CDS after you get your DEA if it's required by the state or the state has that requirement. And not only doctors can get this CDS or the DEA certification. So like we mentioned, it can be nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, clinical nurse specialists. These are all kinds of people, dentists. Those are people that have the ability to have this prescriptive authority. Yeah, but you're going to go ahead and check. So, for example, in Georgia, a nurse practitioner can only prescribe controlled substances under a nurse protocol agreement approved by the Georgia Composite Medical Board. And then they must be authorized as an APRN by the Georgia Board of Nursing before seeking a DEA number. So each state is going to have their own rules and regulations when it comes
process to go through it, definitely. It seems, that you think that at least checking every 3 years and doing that, what happened with the podiatrist, though? Let's get back to that story. We got to get back to the gossip. We don't want to bore everybody with the regulations.
Yeah, so the crazy part is he was caught doing all of this while other doctors were probably doing their jobs. And guess what? Now he's facing the same fate. So 20 years in prison and $1 million fine. He'll be lucky if he ever practices again, but thank goodness, at least his DEA number's gone.
Oh my God. So this whole thing wasn't just about bad apples. This is like an epidemic. It seems like a lot of doctors are, out there doing this. I mean, speaking of bad apples, did you hear about the other podiatrist? I heard she's a podiatrist down in Georgia, in your area, actually. And she really took the cake, right?
Well, she was prescribing opioids like they were vitamins. Look, I had to do this one just because it was in Georgia. I was like, oh, Lord. Woo. Yes.
Oh, tell us, we're ready.
Yes, she was handing out hundreds of thousands of oxycodone pills along with morphine or whatever and fentanyl patches.
Fentanyl? I thought fentanyl kills.
Yes. So, girl, did she forget what the word doctoring means? She was writing prescriptions for people who were just looking to get high. And when she got caught, do you know how many pills they found on her?
I'm scared to ask, Nyleen.
275,000 oxycodone pills and 100,000 hydromorphone pills.
Like in her luggage, in her purse,
in her office, I guess. Yeah, on her, next to her. Yes.
Oh my! I mean, I don't want to be next to 275,000 pills. I don't want to be. I mean, can she even look at herself in the mirror? The audacity to keep prescribing after getting warned from the board. I mean, was she? It's like she thought she was untouchable. Did they warn her? Did they talk to her?
Yes. So apparently she had received warnings, but here's the kicker.
Okay.
When they finally went in and raided her office, she was just like,
okay,
here's my DEA license. No big deal. Like that's all that she had to do. She thought she was invincible, but guess what? She's caught, and now she's facing the serious charges.
Oh my! And this is an ongoing case.
Yeah, I mean,
oh my goodness! Still, yeah, honestly, right? It's just ongoing research all the time. Honestly, what's wrong with some people? You get all this training and this trust from your community, and then you turn around and sell it out for cash. I mean, these people literally use their credentials as an excuse to break the law, and that's just wild to me.
Yeah, it's like a real life soap opera. And they get all the perks, right? They get the licenses, the medical licenses, the power to prescribe, but instead of using it to help people, right, or treat people that really need the pain medicine, they sell it for cash. And the worst part is that they know what they're doing is wrong. I mean, I'm sure there's classes on that, and they keep doing it even after being warned. And these people give legitimate professionals a bad name. They give the good doctors a bad name, and they hurt patients that actually need the care.
Exactly. And it's just so shady, Nyleen. Like, what does all this teach us about credentialing? It's not just about getting the paperwork right? You have to stay on top of things, follow the rules, and not think you can pull a fast one. You know, it's a DEA, and so your DEA is being looked at and it's being tracked, and that's important.
Exactly, Shannon. You know, credentialing is about so much more than just filling out forms, you know? It's about staying accountable and respecting the trust people put in you. You know, these criminals could have avoided all this drama if they just followed the rules. But now they're looking at decades behind bars. The scary part is that, you know, were they even doing surgery? Were they at a hospital? Were they at surgery centers? Because my surgery center, when I was in Florida, we had a podiatrist. Were these facilities performing the checks that were needed to keep them off of staff during the recredentialing cycles?
Yes. And to be honest with you, we also, you know, have many surgery centers on the CVO side, and they all have a podiatrist, 2 or 3 on staff. So, I mean, you're right. You know, a lot of them have nurse practitioners, and, you know, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And we all know what they say. What happens in the Heels and the Deals podcast doesn't stay here. People are listening, and these shady professionals are getting exposed at this point. This is what happens when you forget that your credentials really mean trust in the community.
Exactly. These heels may have strutted into courtrooms, but now their deals are crashing down around them.
Okay, Nyleen.
I love my pun there. No, so
your pun, yeah.
Yes, don't mess with your professional responsibility. It'll catch up with you. And you know what's serious? Focusing on podiatrists because we wanted to make sure we used our pun diligently. But I mean, we could probably do several episodes on every specialty of doctors or nurse practitioners, PAs, doing this kind of stuff.
Preach, Nyleen. Let's just hope others learn from these crazy stories. That's why we're getting them out there. If you're a professional, do the right thing. Do not take deals for quick cash, or you might end up in the next episode of Heels and Deals. Nyleen, so what's the status of these podiatrists and this nurse practitioner now?
All right, so let's go back and just do some follow-up after my research here. So the nurse practitioner ended up voluntarily surrendering their license in the state of New York in 2015, and they do not have a license to practice in any state. So there goes that career. Poof. Yeah, so the state licensing site states that the criminal conviction was reported and there was a basis for action. And it's so funny because they cite here the NPDB codes. And so the NPDB code 19 is for a criminal conviction. And then they cite code 1145, which was the voluntary surrender of a license.
Which we've talked about many times, remember? They get in trouble and they voluntarily surrender the license so it doesn't look bad on their record. You know, I love to say poor thing, but all that studying, all that money for that schooling, I mean, and for some quick cash. What about the podiatrist? Please tell us. I'm so excited to hear about it.
Well, so for the first podiatrist, honey, he has a perfectly clear license as far as the public shows. His only restriction is, he can't prescribe.
What?
Yes, I hope at least the NPDB has it on their report. But I mean,
I hope.
He still has a license. So who knows if he still is practicing. I tried to find an office for him, but all it says is not accepting new patients.
He better not be accepting new patients because we're looking.
So the second podiatrist, I know you asked for a status update, so surprise, surprise, the state is giving me some problems to look up their license.
Like we said, ambiguous. Ambiguous.
Yes, and it's a podiatrist, so sometimes podiatrists don't fall under the same, license lookup as doctors. Yeah. So it's a separate search feature, so I was having a really hard time. So their NPI is still active. I could not find a practice with their name associated with it, just showing that they were still active in Georgia. And all that pulls up really is their name, their NPI, and all the articles basically relating to the situation we're discussing today.
Why is it so difficult? Unbelievable. At the very least, it should be simple to check a healthcare provider's license, regardless of their specialty. I mean, just because it's a podiatrist doesn't mean they should be locked up separately in a secret cave with the gold of America.
Yes. Well, that's what it feels like.
That's what it feels like. Is there a verification in there? Is there tons and tons of gold? I don't know either one. I don't know.
Exactly. Like, why do I have to know all these secrets, ins and outs of every board? Like, can't we just have them all be the same? Can't we just look up a nurse practitioner and a doctor at the same time? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, and then like for new medical staff professionals coming out, it's so hard for them to learn because it's 50 states, 50 different processes. And I mean, it makes it very not clear for patients. I mean, right? It makes it easy for people to hide is what it feels like.
Exactly. So this brings us to our PSA segment. What do doctors and healthcare providers do? Give me some PSA for them.
Definitely. Remember, the trust that comes with your credentials. Remember, do no harm. Your medical license is not just a piece of paper. It's a responsibility to your patients, to your communities, to our communities, right? And to your professional colleagues and profession as a whole. The recent cases of healthcare professionals exploiting their position for personal gain highlight the devastating consequences of credentialing failures and unethical behavior that is out there happening all the time. Some of these cases aren't recent, but they all have happened. They have all hurt patients. And that's what we're trying to get out and expose in this, area. And a lot of the recent cases haven't been fully played out in the courtroom. So we have to wait for all those court papers to really give you a juicy story. Always perform through exams, follow, thorough exams and follow proper medical protocols. Prescribing controlled substances should never be done without a legitimate medical need. Regularly review and adhere to ethical guidelines set by medical boards and regulatory bodies, and understand that your actions affect more than just your patients. They have a profound effect on your career and the public's trust in healthcare as a whole. The law is very clear. If you abuse your credentials, the consequences are severe. Sometimes, right, Nyleen? Protect your reputation and your patients' well-being by managing the highest standards of integrity and professionalism.
So for our fellow MSPs out there, our credentialing specialists, you really play a critical role in safeguarding the integrity of the healthcare system. You guys are truly the gatekeepers of all the patient safety. The cases of illegal prescriptions really highlight the importance of the need for really the diligent credentialing process. Be vigilant, review credentials, and ensure that professionals are adhering to all regulatory and ethical standards. And I'm sure these doctors worked with office personnel. Like, guys, if you're working in a doctor's office, watch what your doctor's prescribing. Like, really, you have to help out the patient too, So ensure, even if you're not a medical staff professional and you're just a healthcare worker in the office, you're our front desk staff, you're our MAs, please ensure that healthcare providers are consistently meeting the licensing requirements and ethical standards. Stay up to date on all the red flags, check on their unusual prescribing patterns. Collaborate with your regulatory bodies to identify and address potential risks before they escalate into any major issues. Make sure your prescription pads are locked up and only the doctor has access to them. This is why there's all this two-factor authentication now to send the prescription. And I know it's annoying, doctors, they got to go and they got to look at their little, little hub thingies and put in the number, but still. Anyway, MSPs, your efforts are the key, really, to prevent fraud and protect the healthcare system from individuals who would compromise it really for just personal gain, So Shannen, what can we say to some patients? Like, how can a patient protect themselves?
For patients, your health and your safety should always come first. If you've ever unsure about a prescription or medical advice, ask questions, seek second opinions. Medical professionals are here to help, but not exploit your trust. Never hesitate to question a doctor's treatment plan or request more information about prescribed medications, especially controlled substances. You have the right to know. Report any suspicious behavior to medical boards or authorities. Protecting your health is everybody's responsibility. Always verify the credentials of your healthcare provider and make sure they are licensed in good standing. Always also, if you're going to see this doctor, put out a Google alert in your Googles. So that way, if anything comes up about this doctor, it'll flag you in your email and you'll be able to see it. By staying informed and aware, you can help protect yourself and others from unethical medical practices. Nyleen, give us a couple of takeaways, please.
All right, so whether you're a healthcare provider, a credentialing specialist, or a patient, integrity and vigilance are key. These stories serve as a harsh reminder that trust in healthcare is sacred and it must be safeguarded by everyone involved. So always please ensure that your actions, your decisions, and professional standards, and that goes for all three. So the actions of our healthcare providers, the actions of our credentialing specialists, and the actions of our patients, right? And the decisions of these three and the professional standards of these three are upheld to the highest ethical and legal principles to protect each other, okay? Patients, you want to have good doctors to see. So really, do we want to put their careers in danger by, hey, can I get an extra script? Like, no. Healthcare providers, you're really going to put all your years of training and your brain to the garbage because of this? No, it's definitely not worth it. And so we just want to keep that integrity in the medical field. So stay accountable, stay ethical, and overall, stay safe.
Whoo, that was a lot of tea. Who knew doctors had more drama than reality TV?
And if you think that was wild, just wait till next week. We've got more stories, more scandals, and more credentialing chaos coming your way.
Hit that follow button and don't forget, just because they have an MD doesn't mean they have a clean record.
See you next time on Credentialing Chronicles. Stay credentialed, not canceled.